What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Recovery Couch. Today I'm joined by Rob Lohman, a man whose story powerfully illustrates the grace of God and the strength found in true recovery. Rob shares his journey from the chaos of addiction to a life transformed by faith, community, and purpose. In this conversation, we talk about the importance of honesty, vulnerability, and professional help in uncovering past traumas and how God's grace can bring miraculous change. Rob's mission to build a Christ-centered recovery program is a reminder that no matter how far we fall, redemption is always possible. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Rob Lohman. This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying or selling your home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Recovery Couch. Today, we're joined by Rob Lohman, a man who knows firsthand what it means to hit rock bottom and rise again. Rob's journey has taken him through addiction, prison, divorce, and bankruptcy. But by the grace of God, he came out clean on the other side. Now he's using his story to lift others from the rut, offering hope, recovery, and purpose through a faith that never gave up on him. This conversation is all about redemption, resilience, and the power of transformation through Christ. Rob, we're so excited to have you on the show today. How you doing, brother?
I am glad to be here as well. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, man. So let's just get right down to it. Your life today is totally different from your life. I don't know. Take us back. How many years ago when you were going through addiction, prison, divorce, bankruptcy, all of those things? How long ago was that?
It's sporadic and scattered. Like the story, you mentioned rock bottom, right? And I'd say there's a couple rock bottoms in my life in regards to recovery and, like you mentioned, prison and all the kind of chaos that involves. Because recovery is not just about getting rid of the substances, it's about doing life. So as we get into the story, there's a couple moments you're like, oh, that was it. Oh, actually things changed again later on. And it goes back to what you said in the intro, which I appreciate what you said, is a faith that never gave up on him. Because I definitely put my faith on a shelf for a while, but it was just there waiting for me. So that was really cool how you said the faith that never gave up on him. That resonated a lot with me.
Thanks, Rob. So it sounds to me like you had faith early in your life, and then you kind of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, started appeasing the ways of the world, or you started engaging in the appetite of your flesh, or however you want to put it. What did that look like? At what age did you start to go away from faith and more towards the world, and then what age did you start to kind of come back to faith?
Yeah, appreciate that. It's faith again has always really been there. And before we kind of get on, because I know when people listen to your shows or podcast shows in general, the phone rings, the baby cries, those kind of things too, right? So I want to throw some out there to people. If you want to copy what we'll talk about today of my intervention book about the work I do, just go grab it at freerecoverybook.com. You can get a free copy there. So freerecoverybook.com for people listening. And also, while you're listening to the show, Brandon does amazing work. So share this episode with people that need something about recovery. I just want to pump his show out there to people because sometimes people don't share it, but we have an obligation to share things with people as we hear them. So just throwing that out there to your listeners. It's good stuff as a fellow podcaster. And yeah, again, it's the chaos of recovery and addiction, right? And you hear some people's stories and you're like, I can understand why they became an alcoholic, a drug addict, a gambler, a porn person, or whatever, right? You can hear a story, it's like, man, that makes sense. I could see why they would have gone down that road. But for me, I grew up in a Christian home in the Midwest, so I'm a Midwest boy at heart. And the thing about alcohol is alcohol was just always around in a sense of gatherings or social gatherings or at the lake. There was just alcohol around. So there was this allure, like, that looks fun. Have you ever watched something, Brandon, and you're like, that kind of looks fun, I might want to try it?
Absolutely.
Like skateboarding, riding a bike or something. It was like, yeah, alcohol. And then it just kind of entered my lips one day. And I'm like, a switch went off, and that actually tasted good. And it in some ways, as I kind of went through, from 14 and beyond, those inhibitions kind of went away of, you feel taller, more handsome, funnier, and people are attracted to those things. So therefore, it's kind of like, oh, people are laughing at me, with me. That's good. So, but there was, again, no real reason I should have been an insecure individual. My parents were great. I had great cousins, aunts, uncles, all those things. But now, I'm 53 now. So in my 53 third year, I actually learned about ADHD in my life. And now that I can trace back my behaviors throughout my life, I can say, okay, there are definitely those ADHD behaviors that were happening. And it can actually answer a lot of my roaming brain, my lack of focus, my seeking of attention and dopamine hits and all that kind of stuff. So my life actually makes more sense now, even though I'm 25 years sober, learning about ADHD in my brain and the chemical makeup of how I ticked.
So this was around 14. You started your inhibitions went away, as you put it. And at the time, obviously, you didn't know that this was due to a greater mental health issue that you're saying was probably ADHD, but you were finding comfort in drinking, attention from people thinking you were funny, and you had an insecurity. And there was no reason that you should have been insecure. How long did this go on? Were you coping with your insecurities and the unidentified issue of ADHD through drugs and alcohol?
Oh yeah, there's definitely that part too. Because again, once I started drinking, it was just kind of what became my normal behavior for the next 15 years of my life. And I can look at that as the thrill seeking, the dopamine seeking, how can I get out of this situation seeking. And there was obviously connection to right and wrong, but it was just kind of when you, in a sense, are somewhat charming and smart and things, I kind of got out of things a lot of times. And sometimes I heard someone say this to me once, like, it sounds like you're really boastful, Rob, about certain things you say. I'm like, that is not it at all. It's the awareness piece now. Because when you're in the middle of an addictive cycle or things, it's like, oh, that worked. Oh, someone wants to get in conflict with me? Well, if I just run away, I don't have to get in the conflict. Or that's painful. Or I really want to go talk to those people, but I probably need some alcohol so I feel more comfortable doing it. And so it just kind of became a natural pathway for me. And so I started drinking at 14, started gambling at 15, started just kind of that whole party life for a while. And high school was what high school was. And there's a phrase I use that I feel like, as we unfold my story, and thanks for having me on the show, is that as alcohol and potential entered the room at the same time, alcohol won every single time. So there's this potential, these dreams, these goals, these aspirations, and it was like, yeah, but this is easier just to go drink and hang out with people instead of apply myself and work really hard. And in those moments when I had to work really hard, like I had to get an A on a test to get the B or get a grade I needed, and it was kind of easy for me if I applied myself. And when I applied myself, I could easily get an A on a test or something or excel, but I just didn't have that drive, if you will. And so yeah, that was kind of like the journey. In high school, I remember the first big thing as I look back on my life, I felt like I was a pretty good swimmer. Like swimming's always been my thing, of my exercise and recovery, swimming as a kid. I just always liked to be on a swim team, and I was good when I worked hard. But some of my colleagues teammates and I, we would go drink before we'd go swimming. And senior year, it was one of those things of I can either continue to keep drinking or I can continue to keep swimming, but I probably shouldn't do both. So what do you think I chose, Brandon?
I think you chose drinking.
I chose drinking because you have not seen me on the Olympics. So, yeah, but it was one of those things I just kind of let it go. It was kind of like, okay, well, we'll just go this way. It was more fun to party. And then when I went to college, I was going to college to become a doctor like my grandpa. That was always one of the things I always wanted to do. I always wanted to become a doctor like my grandpa, but nobody really challenged me on that. Like, have you ever considered going into business or entrepreneurship or something else? It was just, I'm going to go to med school. But again, potential and alcohol, they followed each other. and I was more apt to party in college and just do things I did in college. So college was just a fast-paced chaos of stuff where I, lied to my parents about how I was doing, or I, just tried to cover it up or sweet talk them. And, they allowed me to stay for 4 years, and I graduated in 4 years somehow, But, my parents were, I love my parents a lot, and I got away with a lot. And that was, again, a hard thing. I think something for them to even swallow later on. Like, why didn't we do? Well, we can look back and play God and say, if I would have done this, then this would have happened. But we don't really know the answer to that, right? I lied a lot and manipulated a lot. And, and I also told the truth a lot along the way. But
so you saw your charm, your charisma as at the time, back in from 14 to 29, 30 years old, the charm and the charisma was working for you. So it's kind of like a blessing. But now in your 50s, you're looking back on all this and you're kind of thinking like, man, that was a little bit of a curse because it allowed me to not have to suffer the consequences of some of these behaviors or that I had. Am I gathering that correctly?
Yeah, well, I knew it was a curse. I knew it. What I mean, it was just a history of getting out of situations, so I just figured I could get out of the next one. But also, like, I had this phrase in my head. It was like, God's keep me alive for a bigger reason. I mean, all the moments I should have died in college of, almost riding a bicycle off of a, 300-foot cliff, and my friend Vince tackled me at the last second and just saved me not knowing what was on the other side, right? Like, I should have gone off that, or totaling a car, just all these things that happened that could have changed the trajectory of my life in a positive way. But I just looked at it, I'm like, well, no real consequences there on that thing either. And so when I look back on it now, I call it the chameleon theory, which I'll probably write a book about it now. I said it on air. If anyone else writes the book, I'm coming after you. Trademark TM. But I just felt like I didn't really get to know who I was very well because I was always trying to be who you wanted me to be. And there was definitely authenticity in that. I wasn't like a coward just floating whatever, but there was this thing of I wanted you to like me, so I would act as if the new Discover commercials, right? If you've seen those, and the person calls on the phone about their Discover card, and the person on the other end's mimicking their behavior. It's like, hey, what's up? I'm just calling about my Discover card. Oh, great. Your Discover card? Let's talk about it. And so I would try to mirror the environment I was in a way like a chameleon does, and just try to blend in but also stand out. And that was college. I mean, I graduated with, I almost didn't graduate, and my whole family was there at the graduation thing, and I'm like, I didn't think I was going to graduate that day. But I didn't tell my parents that, or my grandparents, or my cousins that came down. I literally got called into my biology teacher's office because I had to pass this exam in order to graduate. And I'm scared, and a lot of times I just didn't know how to be honest, or didn't want to be honest, and never told anybody. But my professor calls me in, and I go in, I'm sitting down like, just, am I going to graduate? And he goes, what the heck have you been doing for the last year? And in my mind, I'm just like, am I going to graduate? I'm like, what do you mean? And he shows me this 5-section test, and he goes, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never seen an exam this high before. But he's like, part 1, like 98, part 2, 100, part 3, like 97 or whatever. And he goes, what have you been doing? And I'm thinking, did I graduate? And I just said, did I graduate? He said, yes. And I'm like, I bolted out of there, never told my parents that, never told anyone that until I got sober, because my parents invested a lot of time and money into sending me to college. It wasn't cheap, and I'm just this knucklehead getting by. And I left a lot of potential on the table, and never went to med school, never had the focus to do it, just kind of let that go. But never actually sought advice from my dad or other people, say, what else should I do? Like, what am I good at? I just continued through life.
And I'm assuming that as you continue through life, that the drinking continues, because I'm guessing rough numbers here. You graduated college probably around like 22, 23, 24 years old. And if I'm doing my math correctly, you started drinking around 14, and you said for 15 years. So that's probably about 5 or 6 more years of drinking from the end of your college career until your sobriety date. Am I right there?
Yeah. It was. I mean, I graduated. Let's say I was born in '71, graduated college in '94. Yeah, so it's 22ish, but along the way, it was this thing of like when I do what I do now with addiction interventions, and I look at people's lives, and I sit down with families that call me about their sons or daughters, right, and they're in college, and you hear the phrase, "Oh, it's just a phase; they'll grow out of it." But I'm on the whole plane now of, well, why don't we try to bring the bottom up to your wife, son, daughter, grandparent, child now? Say, hey, things aren't looking like probably the way you need them to. Let's call this the bottom of your life. And here's some tools where you can like start going this way instead of this way. Start going up and down instead of down. And here's some tools to help you. Like I see the cycles with families all the time now. And I was in that cycle, right, of just destroying my life quietly, desperate, alone, and those things. And so that was post-college up until I got sober, was just doing the same thing, but I'm a working professional now. I'm a functioning alcoholic. I cannot stand that term. People stop saying it because you're not a functioning alcoholic. You're defunctioning. Like you are not functioning, even though you can manipulate your environments. And so many salespeople are great salespeople drinking and drugging, and they suck when they're sober. It's like, so are you really a good salesperson? Or are you just a alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever those things are? But again, I want to tell people this too. You are not your addiction. You are not your addiction. And as much as you want to believe that, the behaviors are what's happening. So let's break those cycles. And my cycles continued. I mean, I got married in my addiction. You mentioned divorce earlier. It was a short-lived marriage in my addiction. We drank differently. I started wanting more for my life and just realized that wasn't the right partnership in my life. God was not part of that marriage in a sense. I wasn't seeking the Lord like I live it now. And my marriage now still has its own struggles because I'm human, and we've been married for almost 19 years. So my wife and kids will attest that this dude ain't even close to where he could be, but he's working towards getting there. So I still struggle with stuff. But back then it was an alcoholic marriage. We got divorced, filed bankruptcy. A lot of things were happening in my life then because I was just a gambling addict too, and I would go to Vegas and, cash advances at 23% interest on your credit cards, right, just so I could gamble and look like I had my crap together. Thank goodness I don't have to act like that anymore in my life today. But it led up to some other darker times right before I got sober. So
yeah, take us through them, man. So you've already said that the alcoholic marriage was kind of like the end of the addiction, which led to the divorce and bankruptcy. We haven't got to the prison yet. What are the darker times? Like what was rock bottom?
Yeah, well, I was for the substance abuse part. I was dealing a lot with suicide ideation. Like I hated who I had become, and more like intrusive thoughts. So there's suicide ideation. There's where you're kind of thinking a lot about suicide and how you're going to do it and things like that. There's also these intrusive thoughts that come in like, hey, you suck, you should kill yourself. It's like, no, I don't suck. I don't want to kill myself. But after those beat you up for a while, and you kind of look at your life. As I looked at my life, I'm like, I do kind of suck. Like I'm not honest. I'm manipulating my life to fit what I want. I am crying out for help, but I don't really know how to get help. So I went to AA. I'm a big fan of AA for people, and whatever your pathway is to get sober, whether it's AA, Celebrate Recovery, Life Recovery, Rehab, Detox, Outpatient, Sober Living, whatever. There's a plethora of ways to find community and get sober. And back then, I went to AA because I wanted something different. And I didn't believe AA was for me at the time, right? I was better than them or anything. It was just like I went to an AA meeting, and there was a dude sharing a story, and everyone was smoking cigarettes, and I'm like, this is what recovery is about.
This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by J.B. Davis at Performance Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, ask for J.B. in Centerville and tell them The Recovery Couch sent you.
I found out later the meeting I went to, I just referred to, was actually never a smoking meeting. It was actually one of the best meetings in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But I wanted to convince myself that wasn't for me, right? So I quit drinking for about 3 weeks. realized I did it. I made it. I can do this. Went to Vegas on a business trip, and they had fake alcohol or non-alcoholic beer and a retailer's party where you were fake gambling. And I made it through the night. Like I drank fake beer and I fake gambled. I didn't really gamble. I didn't really drink alcohol. So I thought I could do it again. And that night I drank again, and it was terrible. It was scary. And that went on for I don't even remember the time frame, but I was dealing a lot with this suicide ideation thing where I'd be driving down the highway in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I would see my car veer off of the road and hit a median, and it would blow up, and I'd be dead on the side of the highway. I'm like, that was weird. That was scary. But who am I going to tell? If I called you up, Brandon, and you're one of my friends, and I told you that, what would you probably suggest I should go do?
Oh, probably counseling. I mean, it depends on how close we are. Like if one of my best friends, to be completely honest, I'm going to be like, dude, stop it, bro. But if we're a lot of my friends, since I'm in recovery now, are newer, 5 to 7 years, friendships. And so I would probably be a little more, I don't know, by the book. Well, maybe you need to talk to somebody. I can't handle that. I don't know exactly what to do, but maybe you need to talk to somebody who does. To be honest with you, Rob, I prefer the buddy who's just like, dude, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah.
That phone call is going to snap me out of it better than the textbook phone call about like, well, I know a person who handles these types of situations. It's almost like a negotiator.
Yeah.
But we're all different.
Yeah.
We're all different. But to answer your question specifically, I'd be textbook. You need to call somebody. Have you do you know a counselor on speed dial or therapist? That's probably the textbook answer I would give you based on how long I've known you.
Yeah, you're right. And I didn't want to tell anyone this stuff because they'd be like, you go to psych ward or something like that, like you're crazy. Because it was happening more frequently, and that's scary. So if people are listening right now and you're dealing with this kind of stuff and these scary thoughts are going through your head, I do agree, go talk to somebody. Because if over time, those just thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, they start happening more often where chances are you might get to the point where I got to. And I was hanging out in a bar in Fort Wayne, Indiana on June 7th, 2001. And it was the thing we did. I mean, I drank and drove 8 nights a week. I never got in trouble. It was just one of those things. I had a bad drunk driving accident one time, and it just didn't wake me up at all. It was just like, okay, I didn't die. I didn't get hurt. So that sucked. And just, you think that would wake someone up and say, go get help, right? But I'm hanging out in a bar this night, and it was music and girls and everything, and then all of a sudden the bar gets completely dead silent, which is really bad for a podcast show having dead air, right? But a little bit of lightheartedness there. But literally the bar gets dead silent, and I look around the place, and I hear this audible voice say, "You're done." And then the bar got really loud again. And so I look at my friend Sean, and I was like, man, I got to go home. I think I'm finally done drinking. He's like, yeah, whatever, Dan, we'll see you at the bar tomorrow night. I'm like, no, I'm out. I got to go. I get in my car, and I'm driving home, and the way I kind of felt like what happened was like Jesus Christ was sitting in my passenger seat, but I'm driving the car home. He's like holding the steering wheel to get me home safely, and I'm just like, what is happening? Because there was a shift that happened inside of me, but I didn't know what it was. And I get home, and I walk up 12 steps to my one-bedroom apartment with a gym in the middle of the living room. And next thing I know, I'd put 350 pounds on my barbell and picked up the barbell, unhinged my elbows, and that was it for me. That was my out. But I serve a God that carries the weight of the world. And so in that moment, what I believe happened is God just kind of put his hand on that barbell and said, hey, Jake, who's my yellow lab, you need to go save your dad. So my dog comes up and starts nudging my knee with his head, with those puppy dog eyes just kind of grazing up on my knee, just like, what are you doing, Dad? And my first thought was, who's going to feed you tomorrow? I'm like, what about my parents and just like all the good stuff? I'm like, holy crap. So God puts the barbell back on the rack, and that was kind of it for me. I mean, it was just that moment of clarity. I slept in peace that night. The next morning, my Aunt Carol came and took me to an AA meeting in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and God just radically took my desire to drink away. As much as I drank and as often as I drank, I haven't had a craving ever since then. And so that's why I say I've had a divine intervention in freedom from drinking and drugging, because that is not the typical percentage of people, definitely not what I see as an addiction interventionist now. And that just started my recovery journey, which was amazing and awesome for a while.
So 350 pounds is much more weight than I could ever bench press.
Oh yeah, I could do like 225 maybe by myself, but 350, I just put all the plates on and I was like, screw it, I'm done. But I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. It was when you're in those, I call them like driven by the subconscious. I was drunk that night, but sometimes our trauma and stuff is stored at the base of our brain, and we're just like on autopilot because we don't reach the front of our brain, like the reasoning and the logic area is just like stuck back here in the bottom, and you're just on autopilot doing some stupid crap or going to hurt yourself, and it's not a forethought of like, hey, this is a really good idea. I'm going to get drunk tonight. I'm going to go to the bar. I'll probably hear from God, and I'm going to put 350 pounds on my barbell and just kill myself. Like, it's not a thought. I never thought of that before.
Me neither. Nor have I ever heard anybody tell me that they've had that thought either, Rob. So you have the barbell locked out.
No, my elbows are unlocked. I mean, they're unhinged. Like, God literally stopped that bar from coming down on my chest, and that's why I believe like He stopped time in my apartment in that millisecond, that speed of light time, and it was just like I'm literally looking at my dog nudging my knee, and I'm just and the odd thing is, Brandon, one of my favorite songs in my life at that time was this song by the Pirates of the Mississippi. If you ever heard of them before, that you don't hear much about them anymore, but they had this song called Feed Jake, which was my dog's name. And the song goes, feed Jake. If I die before I wake, feed Jake. And it's all about he's been a good dog and my best friend right to the end. And I'm just like, wild stuff. So that's, if you ever go listen to that song as you're listening to this interview, you listen, I was like, holy crap. Like that was like literally playing out in real time in my life.
So you actually pushed 350 pounds, like some with some superhuman strength helping you.
Yeah.
That's incredible, dude.
Yeah, and just the fact that that's, again, I said before, like God kind of, I feel like God just kind of lets me go to that edge of the edge of the cliff, the edge of things. Like, no, not right now. It's like, is He going to get it this time? Like the Israelites, are they going to get it this time? Okay, one more time. Like, let's just do this again. And again, even in recovery, life has been difficult with, just the mental health stuff or just life situations that come in you didn't deal with in early recovery that came later. Like, I can't handle this. Like, this is too much. I'm overwhelmed. Like, oh, crap. And but a lot of that has to do with staying close to community and staying close to your faith and doing the good things in your life that got you there instead of pulling back when life gets too busy.
So let's walk from. So you go to this AA meeting. You said in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yep.
And that's your sobriety day. You haven't had a drink since. What starts working in your life from like a spiritual perspective, and what type of changes do you start to make from a physical, a mental health, a physical health, an emotional and spiritual health? What are some new decisions?
Yeah.
What type of daily routines start to change in your life?
Yeah, well, you hear that term pink cloud in early recovery with people, and it's like life's just better. Like, I almost died yesterday. These people are happy, so I'm going to listen. So I had to practice humility to just listen and take advice from people that had been further along than myself. So I just started going to meetings, and like I love the 12-step program, and I want people to hear this too. Like, each type of setup has a season in someone's life until you kind of want to go deeper. Because I don't believe that we are addicts the rest of our life. I believe that there's freedom that comes from being an addict. We might do addictive behaviors, but my identity is not in my addiction. It is in who God says I am. And that works for me and many people, because if I just continue to say, well, my name's Rob, I'm an addict the rest of my life, I'm going to continue to identify myself as an addict. And if that works for people listening, that works for you. But I believe that we are children of God that used to do things addictively, and we are freed from our addictions but we can identify either with who God says we are or our past. And I'm all about, identifying who God says I am. And so for me, I went to a bunch of meetings. I got plugged into community. I joined softball teams. I did service work. I just did what they suggested to do because it worked. I didn't do step 10 when I'm on step 2 because my sponsor was like, hey, these are in order for a reason. So we're going to do them in order for a reason. And it got me on a really, really, really good path. As I look back on that, one thing I wish I would have done was sought out counseling and therapy in the beginning of my recovery to really, truly understand my past. Professional help, I think, is amazing for people. So if you're new in recovery, I do recommend like the 3 C's: community, counseling, and coaching. So counseling helps us understand the past, community lets us enjoy the present, and coaching helps us see, like the recovery coach, right? We want to help people see their future and know that they can become so much more than our addictions told us we can't become, right? So that was the beginning of recovery and what was great for a while.
So what type of daily routines do you start changing, aside from, the fact that you got into AA and you started working the step work? Did you start having a morning routine? Did you start living more of a routine life?
Yeah.
How did you eliminate, the want or the need to go to the bar or seek acceptance from having drinks and having people laugh at you? Where did those shifts start to take place, and how did they start to take place?
Well, for one thing, going to meetings, I was able to meet people that were like-minded, and we just had fun, like going to coffee dates, just going to have coffee, or going out on a Friday night to go to a restaurant and just get coffee and desserts. So the community piece was huge. So that was involved in my life right in the beginning. But yeah, I started learning about books, and I'd start doing devotionals in the morning. I had routine meetings I would go to regularly. I really liked the people. I'd meet with my sponsor regularly, which was great. Started going back to church, which was great. Started plugging into Bible studies, which was even better. And so just I'd hear about certain things, and I'd go explore them. I'm like, yeah, that'll work for me, or that won't. Because my work schedule was flexible. I was in sales and marketing, so I was out and about a bunch. So if I ever traveled for work, I would literally call the general service office there and say, hey, I'm coming into town for work. I don't know if I'll need anybody, but do you have any temporary sponsors on a list I could call? So I'd get someone's name, and I'd remember going and travel, and I'd call people and say, hey, let's go have coffee. I just want to connect with someone because I don't want to go to the casino because I also had a gambling addiction, which that continued for many years off and on, which was that dopamine seeking, the pleasure seeking, and I didn't know how to explore that because I didn't see it as a problem until later. But I also encourage people, if you're new to recovery from substances or porn or whatever it is, look at those other things where you're seeking pleasure and start looking at those in the beginning too, instead of letting them really kind of drag out in your life.
So when did you start writing? When did you start incorporating recovery into like your calling, your purpose, your ministry?
Yeah. So I started seeking careers that were more fulfilling. So I ended up getting out of real estate because I didn't enjoy the real estate world. I just needed something different. And I sought out, so I ended up moving to, I was living in Fort Wayne, but I wanted to live somewhere else. So there was this cool website. It doesn't exist anymore. It was called findyourspot.com. And I literally go into findyourspot.com and I start typing in, like, what do I like? Well, I like smaller communities. I like faith-driven communities. I like the mountains. I like the water. And I put all these parameters in, and it spit out all these areas in the Colorado, like out in the country. And what I learned in early recovery is I can do anything as long as my spiritual conditioning is solid. And I have community. So I started looking at all these other places to live, and I ended up moving out to Charlotte, North Carolina, primarily because I sought out a meeting when I went there. This is for all you sales and travel guys. And I went to the speaker meeting. Excuse me. And they said, is there anyone here visiting from out of town? Hey, my name's Rob. I'm thinking about moving here. Whatever I said. At the end of the meeting, I literally had a stack of business cards like an inch and a half thick and said, hey, if you need a job, if you need a place to live, if you need connections, I'm thinking, I could move here. I didn't know anybody in Charlotte, North Carolina. So where did I end up moving to? Charlotte, North Carolina. And actually Matthews. And I just met all these people. So I knew I could do anything as long as my spiritual conditioning was right. So it it was community, it was devotionals, it was church, it was men, it was vulnerability, and I was, pretty honest about my life. I never really talked about the gambling thing because I just didn't see it as an issue, but it was that pleasure seeking, that dopamine. I'll call it the ADHD syndromes of what's the next shiny object, what can I do, and so then I ended up through a couple of transitions. I ended up out in Edwards, Colorado, and so I moved out to Colorado because I always wanted to live here. And I was working on a documentary at the time about people's lives and their passions, and so I had this whole vision I was doing called the Momentum Journey. Long story there, but I was on this mission to hear people's stories, and I ended up in Edwards, Colorado, living with my brother for a while, trying to figure out my life. Started a couple of businesses, trying to see if I could get a coaching business going, like career coaching, or I was working on a documentary. So I'm this creative mind trying to figure out how do I harness it to actually go make money and enjoy what I'm doing. And that kind of wild frivolousness of what's next or whatever caused issues in my upcoming marriage I'll tell you about and stuff down the road. But I'm like this passionate entrepreneur with no money. This is how I related to myself. But God, I was just really seeking God a lot at that time too, while living in the mountains. And that led to some cool things, which ended up leading to some other cool things and then not cool things.
So you're currently in Edwards, Colorado now?
I'm in just outside Denver. So basically I was living in Edwards, going to church, loving church, involved in the youth group. Came over to Denver to go to this thing called Acquire the Fire. It was all about youth and their excitement for the Lord. And I was working on a 3-day Christian music festival God called me to put on. And I just published my first book. And there's K-Love Radio had a booth there. It's a Christian radio station. And I went up to them and I was just like, hey, I sent a press release to you guys. How could I partner with you on this music festival? And you're kind of cute. So I start hamming it up with this gal, and we start talking, and we're like, hey, we love to run, we love board games, we love Jesus, all these things. And so Jen became my wife about 6 months later.
That's cool, man. Always cool to have a little love story in the midst of a redemption story. It definitely capitalizes just the whole entire the whole story, man. That's awesome. So how important is, your physical health been to your recovery? You mentioned running, man. Do you feel like that's a vital piece in your recovery? Huge.
Yeah. And back when we were talking earlier about what I do in the beginning, physical exercise was huge. I started working out and, amassing some muscle and just felt good about it. Kind of got a little vanity about it, which wasn't good. So then I had to back off because I was just like, look at me again. I was like, recovery is not about look at me. It's just about being healthy, right? So physical fitness has always been an important part of my recovery journey. And 2 years ago, I actually had a big injury where I was not able to work out for the last 2 years. I'm actually just getting back into the gym now. And when that was stripped away from me, that was hard, man. And I'm 22 years sober, and here's this incident where now I can't work out, I can't get physical, I can't do the things I want to do, and it was a really hard, especially a year and a half, trying to unravel some of that too with God. But I finally came out of that, and then God got me on a cool pathway now. But I want to go back to speaking to people about different seasons of recovery, because when I got sober, I was single. Right, I didn't have a lot of responsibility. And then I meet my wife, we get married in 2006. Our son was born in 2007. I had a couple career transitions during that time frame and then started a pathway I thought was going to be the last career transition ever. And then my daughter was born in 2010, and I lose my insurance agency in 2011. And leading up to all that, I got so busy with being a father and a husband and a business owner that I quit going to meetings. I quit doing the things that were good for me. I quit plugging into men's Bible studies. I quit engaging with my wife a lot because I was feeling shame that I'd failed, and I failed as a father because I just wasn't making enough money, and just all these negative things started coming in again. This is 11 years sober, or off the juice, But gambling was there, and this risk-taking and this, just hiding again and being secretive. And, my wife and I struggled quite a bit in our marriage of just being consistent provider and a passionate entrepreneur. But a lot of circumstances happened out of my control where like one of my positions when I was doing software sales, they closed our division. So I'm like, that was out of my control. So then I started an insurance agency as a new independent agent, and that was hard. So all these insecurities came back in, right? Not drinking, not drugging, but the behaviors came back. The lying, the deceitfulness, the cheating, not cheating on my wife, but just being manipulative. And I don't see all this happening, but it's happening, right? Now I can look back on it and be like, dude, what were you doing? And I was just trying to get myself out of a hole. I mean, I was sick. I was however many tens of thousands of dollars in debt again because I was trying to save my business, right? And I'd go to the casino and gamble a little bit and lose some money or win some money, which was even worse. And so here I am again. Like, I stopped drinking in 2001, but it's 2011, 10 years later, I'm having a mental breakdown. And so in 2012, after I lost my insurance agency and stuff, I was just sitting in self-loathing and desperation and just like, you suck, you failed. Like, whether people were saying that to me or not, that's what I believed about myself. And so I didn't have a whole lot of community around me because I pulled back quite a bit. And that's a recipe for disaster. That's addiction.
Yeah, I have conflicting thoughts on that. I think there's definitely times where solitude is important, but I definitely think community is important. And, community, it has to be built, just like they talk about our foundation with God has to be built on solid ground. Our foundation with our brothers in recovery has to be built on solid ground as well. And, otherwise it's just going to be quicksand and it's going to sink. And, for a lot of people that I've met in drug addiction, myself included, or any sort of addiction, a relationship built on sand can potentially be like an end all to be all as far as triggers are concerned. So it's important, I think, as members of sober communities to be those, those strong foundations. Those honest, strong, I'm not pulling the wool over your eyes, don't pull the wool over mine. Foundations, they are vital, but you have to have discernment on picking and choosing those sober communities. And so I agree with you there wholeheartedly. So you got deep into your passion about recovery ministry. It sounds similar to me. Like I want to help people who've struggled with the same things that I've been through, because Rob, I've seen addiction in my family from as far back as my brain developed memory. And, when I first started caring about loving people who had mental health issues and substance abuse issues was when I was a young child, not a young man, a young child. And in some ways, when I got into recovery, I started to that started to hurt when I started to realize that. But now it's kind of been eye-opening to like, okay, God, you've been preparing me for this, to have a heart for these type of people since 1986, 1987. And that's amazing kind of to know like how orchestrated God's plans are. What was really like the most impactful thing that was like, I want to start podcasting about recovery. I want to start writing about recovery. I want to start like making this, like my passion is for this. When did that happen? And kind of walk us through like what's going on now in your world, recovery wise. Yeah.
Good point. One thing I would say, I do agree solitude is really important.
Thank you.
When you're in the right mindset. I take silent retreats now in my recovery just to regroup with God and just tune things out and just say, there's so much going on, I need me time. And that is a healthy selfishness right there. Say, I'm going to go unplug, I'm going to take the camping gear, I'm going to go in the mountains for a day and a half, I'll be back. That's it. And you put the reminders and stuff on your email and phone like I'm checking out. But real quick, so 2012, I had a huge mental breakdown. That sent me to prison for a while. God is so good through all of this, okay? And that's a longer story, but it's you can go research me and read about all that stuff. But I had a big mental breakdown that was not good. So it was the biggest mistake in my entire life, which I had to learn how to turn it into the biggest opportunity for me and my family. So through all that, my wife stayed with me. I've been married to Jen for 19 years now. She stayed with me through all this. She had to go through her own journey of, what happened, who is this guy I married, and, God keeps us together, which is incredible and amazing, and it is all good. It was potentially 56 years in prison, which was only 10 and a half months away. So God is good. But in that time away, I spent time with God. I read the Bible front to back, which I'd never done my entire life. I read Christ-centered books about who I am in Christ and what does it mean to be a Christian man and what does it look like going forward. And so I had all this time on my hands to spend time with God. There's actually times I miss that today because now we have a lot of responsibilities, kids, wife, job, career, working with people, clients, all that stuff, right? It can pull me in all these different directions. But in the middle of all that, I have to remember, first, I'm a child of God. Then I'm a husband and a business owner and a coach and an interventionist and all the roles I play in my life. But it was that sweet time in a weird say. It wasn't sweet because I was gone from my family and all those things. But it was a sweet time with God. Because I had to seek him. Because I'm like, what the heck am I going to do, right? And so God would speak to me and give me these promises when I was incarcerated. And one of them was, don't worry, you won't be gone. It was essentially a 13-year sentence I was serving. And God got me out in 10 and a half months, which is a miracle in itself. But it was in that moment, like, God gave me these promises. And even my case manager was like, don't get your hopes up. That's not going to happen. I was like, okay, well, God spoke to me this way, so I'm trusting it will. And when it did, I was like, I wasn't shocked. I was just kind of like, all right, well, you said it would happen. So why shouldn't I trust you? Right? So I get out and live in a halfway house for a little while, but I'm like, what do I do now with my life? How do I help people? How do I provide for my family? And how do I kind of soothe those entrepreneurial passions? And so having a hard time as people with felonies have a hard time getting a job in some ways. That's an obstacle, by the way. It's not reality, because if you're creative, you can get yourself on a good pathway. So don't use the fact I got an F on my report card as an excuse to just settle. Right? So then a friend of mine said, hey, man, you should think about getting trained to be an interventionist and a recovery coach. You'd be good at it. You're good with people. You know good recovery. You sure as heck know bad recovery because you went to prison and look how your life shaked out. So I looked into it. 2 weeks later, this gal was doing a training in Denver, Colorado, and I went to it, and I'm like, I could do this. So I stepped in and got trained to be an interventionist and launched my business January 1st, 2016. So it's been, 9 years, almost 10 years. And God's been good through that, and I've been bad through that. Like, he's always faithful, but when I look back on how I wish I would have started, here's what I would say. Because, you work with coaches, and you know coaches, and you run into people in recovery. And what do a lot of people do in recovery? They want to go help people. So if I look back on it now, I was like, man, if I would have started out as a Christian recovery coach or a Christian interventionist and marketed myself that way, I feel like I would be where I am now. I would have been there then, right? Because I was just chasing like what everyone else did. Like, oh, this is how you do. Okay, I was doing what other interventionists did. I was doing what other coaches did. Wasn't doing what I really felt like God was calling me to do, right? So fast forward now, 9-10 years later, after coming out of a neck injury and a hip injury for 2 years, I've got all this energy now to go do what God's calling me to do. So right now, actually yesterday, we should be done with the build out by Friday. So I'm actually opening up the first Christ-centered, not faith-driven, not spiritual, but Christ-centered intensive outpatient program in Southwest Littleton. And it's ChristianRehabServices.com. And we're putting our team together right now. The curriculum's being put together. By the time, as people are listening to this, to ChristianRehabServices.com, see if we're open yet. But we're on a mission right now to help people find recovery. I have these bracelets we had made that say recovery plus Jesus equals transformation. And recovery is amazing. And there are, I know, a gazillion amazing people in recovery that could care less about Jesus Christ. They've changed their life around. They have great businesses. Their families are healed, all that stuff, right? There's just this extra layer, this extra depth. And as you mentioned earlier about quicksand, you see, when I met my wife in 2006, I thought my roots of the seeds were deep. But the problem was I actually scattered them on the rocks, not in fertile soil. And so my roots over time were very shallow. They couldn't withhold the storms. And when the storms came, I faltered. Now I'm working on growing my roots really, really, really deep. So when the storms come, I'm not going to be knocked off my platform. Not like speaking platform, but like my foundation. And so I want people to see that no matter what you're doing in recovery, it can feel like the program's really strong. But the deeper those roots are, connected to people and community and churches and Bible studies and all those things, like those roots are going to grow deeper to when the storms hit. It might hurt. It's going to be painful because that's life happening, but it doesn't mean we got to go drink again, right? And if you do, there's this phrase, you probably heard it, relapse is part of recovery. Don't ever say that, because all it does is tell the addict, it's okay to relapse. If I hear relapse as part of recovery when I first get sober, what am I probably going to do and think it's going to be okay?
Relapse.
But I can tell you, relapse does not have to be part of your story. I haven't drank ever since I got sober. Never thought about it. That thing's gone. I don't believe it's going to ever be a part of my story. I don't care to know if I can drink Zima or all these fancy drinks and stuff that came out like when I first got sober. I could care less because I've been freed from that part of my life. And so by helping people understand, they can, and yes, people can go 3 steps back and 1 step forward. But the more we're authentic in our community and doing things, we're honest with people, we're open, we're doing the work, chances are you'll probably go 3 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah, that's a good illustration. And I don't think that people are meaning to encourage others by saying relapse is a part of recovery. I think they're trying to say, even if you relapse, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
I agree with that.
Yeah, don't give up. Even if that, because if you do, it's probably not going to be the actual relapse that's going to want to take you out. It's going to be your guilt. It's going to be your shame. You're not going to show face in this room ever again.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to plant a seed on fertile soil to say, like, if you do, we are the people. Maybe your family won't. They won't understand it, but we will. Just come back. Don't let it take you out.
Yeah. It's all the way you present it, right? If you say it like that, like, hey man, it's possible you might relapse. I mean, it just, people do, but come back, instead of saying relapse is part of recovery. It's a different mindset with the way that people can hear it and integrate. Because as an addict, I'm looking for the out. Says, oh, okay, cool, that's it. But again, however it lands with whoever's listening, just take it for that part. I just want people to know, it is possible to not go backwards, and you can stay in recovery and love it. But you got to be open. The how, right? Open, or honest, open, and willing. And the more honest I am with people, the less chance I have of fooling myself. The more open I am to recovery opportunities and counseling and therapy and AA, Celebrate Recovery, NA, any of those things, then I'm open that I don't have the solutions or answers. And if I'm willing, I'm going to show up. I'm going to go. I'm going to meet my sponsor. I'm going to meet my pastor. I'm going to do the things because I'm willing, because I don't want to go backwards. I just want to be recovery focused.
Yeah, that's good. So you have a Christ-centered, you said it's a outpatient?
Yes.
So you're doing a Christ-centered outpatient, ChristianRehabServices.com. I love the sound of that, man. So you're getting people, are they coming fresh out of like halfway houses, recovery centers, treatment centers, into your Christ-centered outpatient, and where you're focusing on scripture, the message of Jesus as being our Lord and Savior, dying for our sins, completely freeing us from all of our transgressions and anything that we've ever done in our past, as long as we have faith in the fact that that's the truth. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different pathways people can get sober. I mean, the general pathway is people will go to detox, then they'll go to like inpatient residential, and then they step down to outpatient services. That's a typical progression for a lot of people, that when you look at a pathway that works for a lot of individuals. But a lot of people, they can't go to rehab. It's like, I got a job. If I leave, my carpet cleaning business tanks. My wife has no income. My kids are going to, like, I cannot leave, but I need to do something so I don't lose all of this. So that's where outpatient services are great, because they come into our program for, and IOPs, they're called IOPs, intensive outpatient programs. They're all over the country, right? And they're all over Colorado. There's just no Christian ones in Colorado. So people come in for 3 days a week, typically, 3 hours at a session, and it's all clinical excellence, we're diving into family history and trauma and relapse prevention and all these proven modalities that work. But we have, like, Jesus Christ at the base of everything we do. And what comes out of that is just incredible healing and opportunities for freedom. And then, so that's what the outpatient offers people. Now, what I tell people is, especially as I help people with addiction interventions, is we can try this pathway, because that's what you're willing to commit to, right? It's more than you were willing to commit to yesterday, right? So let's try this outpatient thing. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, and the beautiful thing that we get to do as Christians is, I have a nonprofit side and a for-profit side. Okay, our nonprofit side is creating opportunities for people in the community to get education, right? To get lots of opportunities for, we're going to do baptisms. We're going to offer deliverance ministries where if they just can't beat the demon, we want to recommend them to go to a church for a deliverance ministry to get prayed over and go through an actual process to maybe that's what they need to get freed from the demons that are living inside of them, that are haunting them, and all those aspects of the spiritual warfare, the spiritual battle that's going on from addiction and freedom, right? It's like there's this tension in this battle because the enemy doesn't want us to get free, but God does, and God's more powerful than the enemy. So we have this nonprofit side where we do all this community education and how do you do your finances, how do you do relationships, how do you do all these things, and then there's the for-profit side, which is our clinical work that we do, the actual IOP program, and we have people that get involved in all sorts of cool ways. We're doing this wall of hope in our space where if people go to recoverybrick.com, no matter where you live in the country, you can get your name, your favorite scripture, your verse or something on the wall of hope. And when people walk in, they see that and they're like, what's this thing? So, man, these are people all over the country that have been praying for you. They're here to support you. Mike Smith in Wilmington, North Carolina, or he puts a scripture that says Jeremiah, 29:11 or something, and they see that, and there's a story behind them. And all these cool stories are coming out. So if you want to be on the wall of hope, go to recoverybrick.com and sponsor a brick. But here's one of the cool stories, Brandon, is we're having a brick painting party coming up soon. So I love Facebook Marketplace. I don't know if you ever go on there, but trying to find good deals on like those cool accent chairs that are sitting behind you right now in your room. Like finding cool stuff like that says, hey, what looks good, people can sit there and like get healing in their therapy sessions. So I'm always hunting, and anytime I find something, I say, hey, these will look really good in our Christ-centered outpatient program we're doing for people with addictions in our area. Can I come take a look at them? So we're looking for paint, right? Paint for our brick painting parties so that people can paint these cool bricks. And this lady starts messaging me, and I start messaging her, and she's like, my son almost died from addiction, and we have these long chats with each other. And then eventually I end up at her house, and I ask my wife to come because she's great with art and has an eye for that. And we get there, and the lady said, I have this painting I'd like to give you for your space. I'm like, okay, well, let's go look at it. And we get there, and just amazing conversations, having a blast with this gal. And she's like, well, this is the painting I want to give you. And it's a 4-foot by 5-foot painting of aspen trees. It's beautiful acrylic painting. She could sell it for $1,000 probably. But she's like, if you'd like it, I'd like to give this to you to put in your space. Now, sadly enough, I did not know this fact about my wife, but aspens are her favorite tree. Sorry, honey. I didn't know that. Or she told me and I didn't remember. But my wife's looking at this painting and she's like crying and how beautiful it is, right? And just tears in her eyes. And so we now have this painting to put up in our finished space when it's done. Like right when people walk in, there's going to be this 4-foot by 5-foot painting of aspen trees. Beautiful painting. And people are going to ask, like, well, where'd you get that? What's that story? oh man, I was on Facebook Marketplace, and the woman that gave us a huge discount on all the paint we used to paint this wall for all these bricks. So it's a cool way to bring this woman's story into our space to honor her son, who's sober. He's like 5 years sober now. But those are the stories that are happening with people. And so I'm just excited to see where God takes this and how he brings the kingdom together. And my heart is really to help people find freedom from addiction, right? And build a business that's sustainable, that I can take care of my family forever and open multiple locations, which we will do at some point. And just who knows where God will take it.
Yeah, I love that, man. I love that you're honoring her son and her story.
Yeah.
Just from her, just giving you guys, some love, just to hand out, to help you guys out in your space, and the heart that you have to make sure that you honor, what's going on in her.
Yeah.
So, hey, we're coming up on our time here, Rob. Fantastic discussion. All the listeners, please go check out Christian Rehab Services. If you want to sponsor a brick, go to recoverybrick.com. And one last question for you, Rob. What would you say to anybody out there who's listening, who may be in the early stages of recovery? Maybe they're in active addiction. Maybe they're deep in recovery, but they just don't feel like, for some reason, I'm not accepted in this world, or I'm not as spiritually rooted like you were talking about. What type of advice would you give them, just kind of to take us out of here?
Well, there's millions of people in recovery, and there's millions of people in their addiction. Which side of the coin do you really want to be on? In all honesty, it's you got to do it. For me, I had to do it for myself. And so there are reasons to get sober, like family, careers, all those things. But if we're only doing it for those, and those things go away in our recovery, it's really easy to slip back. So just dig deep and start this journey for you, because you're worth it. Like, God does not make junk. We go through junky things, but God does not make junk. So you're not junk. The things we do are junk, but God has so much more in store for us, for you, that just take that step. Find a spiritually mature person to walk you through recovery. And listen to them, but also listen to the Holy Spirit if you're a believer. If you're not, just consider exploring what it would be like to be a follower of Christ. And one book that's a really good book to read is The Case for Christ. And if you want to see Jesus brought to life, and you're sitting at home with a bottle getting drunk and you're tired of watching war movies or something, watch The Chosen TV series and see if that changes your perspective of what it would be like to be a Christ follower.
Thank you so much. Speaking of books, my book Step 4 comes out this fall. We started a Kickstarter. Please go and spread the message. We're trying to get the message out to as many people as possible, so we can just try to give people hope and encouragement that anything's possible with God. So I want to thank our guest, Rob. Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show. And tune in next time. You always have a seat right here on the Recovery Couch. This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by True Story Media, where real stories find their voice. Whether it's podcasting, video production, or publishing powerful testimonies, True Story Media exists to help people share messages that matter. If you've got a story of transformation, faith, or recovery, True Story Media will help you tell it with excellence and impact. You can learn more about True Story Media at www.recoverycouch.com, so you can start telling your true story today. Wow, what an incredible testimony from Rob Lohman. His story shows that recovery isn't just about abstaining from substances, it's about life transformation through faith, community, and God's grace. Let's remember that relapse does not have to be part of our story, and healing is always within reach. If Rob's message resonated with you, I encourage you to share this episode with someone who needs hope today. And don't forget, you can support the Recovery Couch by joining our Inner Circle on Patreon, where you'll get bonus content and behind-the-scenes access. Also, keep an eye out for my upcoming book, Step 4, A Journey Through Addiction. We have pre-sale copies on sale right now. And if you want to buy one, get with me through the website or at brandon@recoverycouch.com. Until next time, keep fighting, keep believing, and remember, you are not alone, and you always have a seat right here on the Recovery Couch.